All right, first question of the night. Are you guys ready for it? We're going to do some vocabulary tonight because it's Monday night. We're just going to kind of chill a little bit. A listing or agreement protecting the listing broker's commission against the sale of the property by another agent, but not against the sale by the principal. Is that an open listing, an exclusive right to sell, exclusive agency listing, or a net listing? What do you guys think? If it's protecting the property, the broker's commission against the sale of the property by another agent, or by not by the sale of the principal, though. So in other words, the principal could sell it and bypass paying the commission. Yes, that's exclusive agency listing. Remember the difference. If it's exclusive right to sell, then no matter who sells it, whether it be the seller finds their own buyer during the listing period, or the agent finds a buyer, whatever the case may be, they owe the money on exclusive right to sell no matter what. On exclusive agency, we have that loophole where we can get out of paying the commission, the seller can, if they find their own buyer without any help from the agent. They close the deal as a for sale by owner and just go on about their business, right? Okay, so it's on the screen, although it's not the answer to this question. You guys tell me real quickly. So very, very few places are net listings legal. California is one place where they are legal, even though they're discouraged. But for most states, net listings are illegal. But we know what a net listing is. A net listing is when I tell you how much I want to net, and then I say you can keep whatever above and above beyond that amount. So like if I tell you I want to net $300,000 and you sell my house for $400,000, you can pocket $100,000, basically, right? So you can see how that could lead to trouble. Tell me real quickly why you think we don't do these. What is it about net listings that they're discouraged or most of the time illegal? Why would that be? What's the deal there? What could that be? Yes, to keep everybody honest. Exactly. Because my fiduciary duty is to tell you what your house is truly worth. And if I see that you don't want as much for the house as it's worth, you're not aware of the market, and I take advantage of that, that would definitely be breaking my fiduciary duties. Yeah. Where changes in zoning convert commercially zoned areas into residentially zoned areas. Is this variance, a sheet, subordination, or downzoning? What do you guys think? We're taking a commercially zoned area and we're taking it down to a residentially zoned area where it's less dense, right? So that's downzoning. Very good. We got that one right away. And I think we all kind of know what that is. So that is downzoning, right? This is a very complicated definition of which one of these. Is it laches, interest, pledge, or insurance? Ooh, this is a tricky one. I like this one. So yeah, this is just a really crazy long explanation for insurance, right? Insurance. And so it's a contract under which, for a consideration, one party agrees to indemnify another for a possible loss under specific conditions. Very good. Very good. Let's see. Belonging to or relating to the bank of a river or stream. Belonging or relating to the bank of a river or stream. Is it deciduous, littoral, avulsion, or riparian? Deciduous, littoral, avulsion, or riparian? Yes, you guys got it. R for river. So let's say that I lived on the edge of the river and it's a navigable river. Boat traffic can go through this river, and my property line goes up to the edge of this navigable river. That's where my property rights end, right? That's where my property line ends, at the edge of the navigable river. But let's say that Chelsea and I live in between, like my land is over here and Chelsea's over here, and a little stream runs through our two properties, separating the two. Okay. So the stream is kind of meandering along between me and Chelsea's property. And so where would our water rights, what would happen there between Chelsea and I? Where would my water rights be if it's a stream that's not navigable by commercial boat traffic and it's just kind of like wandering? The middle of the stream, right? I would have water rights. I would have property rights to the middle of the stream. And then Chelsea, who's on the other side, would have property rights to the middle of the stream on her side. Now, even though we have the rights to that water and to use it and splash around in it and do whatever, the thing of it is that I cannot put a dam there and say, you know what, I'm just going to build a big dam here and I'm just going to keep this water from flowing down to other people. I'm not allowed to do that. I can't restrict other people's use of it, right? I can't do that. So keep that in mind. Now, the opposite of that, if I live on a lake or an ocean, what is the right called? It's on the screen here. What is the right called when I live on a lake or an ocean? Littoral rights. Exactly. So where the value of a property is estimated by adding the appraiser's estimate of the replacement cost of the building to the estimated land value and subtracting depreciation. Is that gross rent multiplier, the cost approach, income approach, or the market data approach? Remember, we have three approaches to appraisal that we need to really pay attention to on the exam. We have the income approach, the income cap approach, we have the cost approach, and we have the sales comparison approach. And you guys recognize this formula as the cost approach. But let's break this down a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more about this cost approach. What do we mean? And this question says where the value of a property is estimated by adding the appraiser's estimate of the replacement cost of the building. What does that mean? What does replacement cost entail? Yeah, it's the labor and materials, the cost of rebuilding the property, right? To replace it with something that's similar. So if my house burnt down right now and they were going to replace it with another similar looking house, so they have a 1970s tri-level, it's not super exciting, right? So they would just put up another similar house. How much in labor and materials would that cost? That's the replacement cost of the building. But if my house were to burn down right now, what remains behind that we have to add the value back in for? What's still standing there? The land, right? My house is gone, but the land is still there. So we have to add, credit back in for the value of the land. There's different ways to do the depreciation if you're an appraiser, but I tell people, think of it like this. The depreciation in a very basic way is this. How much would a property be worth? My house was built in, I think, 1972. So it's not a new house, right? If my house were to burn down and they were to replace my house with a brand new house, because they can't replace it with another house from 1972, the difference between what somebody would pay for that new building versus my 50-something-year-old building is the depreciation, right? So we have to take that into account when we're doing this formula. The fact that we have to factor in that people are going to pay less for my old house than they would a brand new replacement. And we have to put that into the formula too. Okay, next question. Purchaser or buyer, especially on a land contract. It can be any kind of purchase or any kind of buyer, but we mostly use this in real life when we're talking about land contracts. Is it vendee, trustor, trustee, or vendor? Vendee, trustor, trustee, or vendor. What would the purchaser or buyer be called? And you guys got it right out the gate. Vendee, right? The vendor is the seller. The vendee is the buyer. But let's say that I live in a state that does deed of trust. Tell me real quickly, who is the trustor? I know it's not the answer to this question, but who is the trustor in a deed of trust? Who is that person? Who's the trustor? The borrower, right? The borrower. Who's the lender? What's the term for the lender in a deed of trust? What's their term? So the borrower is the trustor. What's the term for the lender? Anybody remember that one? Very good, Sapna. The beneficiary. The beneficiary is the lender in the deed of trust. And what about the middleman who's over there holding on to the deed for safekeeping until we get it all paid back? What do we call that guy or gal or whoever entity, whatever? That is going to be the trustee. So we had a question. Somebody, Tanaya asked, can I go over deed of trust? So let's think of it like this. Deed of trust, for those of us who live in mortgage states, we're like, oh, that's kind of weird. I live in a mortgage state. But if you live in a state that does deed of trust, what happens is the borrower comes to the closing table, he signs the promissory note, and then the deed is handed over to the trustee for safekeeping. So that's like the middleman, not the lender, not me, just in the middle there. The trustee is going to hold on to the deed. And depending on where you're at, that could be different entities or groups. Some places it's the government, some places it's the company. So it just varies. So the trustee holds on to the deed. How long does the trustee hold on to the deed in a deed of trust? How long? Right. Until it's paid off. And then once the loan is paid off, There's no reason for the trustee and a deed of trust date to keep the deed away from me. That's just to ensure that I don't run off and not pay the money back, right? But once it's paid off, I'm free to go. The trustee is going to give me what? What do we call that? A deed of reconveyance. Anita was on it. The deed of reconveyance is when they reconvey the deed to me at the end, once I've got everything paid off. Now, let me ask you guys another question. What is it in our loan paperwork that says, what clause is it that says that once that loan is paid off, the trustee has to give the deed back? Or in states that do traditional mortgages, it's the same word. What is the clause that says that once I've paid off the loan, they have to release the lien? What's that clause called? Anybody remember? This is called the defeasance clause. The defeasance clause, I've defeated my lender. The defeasance clause says that once that's paid off, then I've defeated them and they have to give it back to me, right? Or they have to release the lien. All right. So movable objects, which are not considered real estate, movable objects, which are not considered real estate. Are they fixtures? Are they personal property? Are they land or are they real property? Oh, which one is it? Fixtures, personal property, land or real property? What do you guys think? They're not considered real estate. They are movable objects that are not considered real estate or personal property. So, okay, bonus points. What's another word that we might see on our exam that also means personal property? What's another word for personal property? Chattel. Yes, we got that one. Chattel is another word for personal property. So, all right, good job, y'all. What does the market value of real property minus the existing liens mean? Ooh, I think we've done this one before. That's kind of cool. What is the market value of real property minus the existing liens? Is it homestead? Is it insurance? Is it equity? Or is it interest? Homestead, insurance, equity, or interest? What is the market value of real property minus the existing liens? And of course, this is our equity. Now, I know that's not the answer here to the question, but think about this. When I think of equity, I think of, okay, this morning I was kind of talking about home equity line of credit. Let's say that you're taking out a HELOC or home equity line of credit on your property. And so that's a refinance, or it's not a purchase mortgage, right? It's you've already owned that property and you're borrowing money from the equity. If you take out a loan like that, like a home equity line of credit, they have a certain number of days after that loan is closed that you can get cold feet and change your mind. How many days is that? 3. We got it. 3 days. 3 days. Now, that is not when you're purchasing a home. Purchase mortgages, this is not the case. A legal term for personal property. We've already answered this. We already know what this is. This is chattel. But because we've already answered it, let's keep going with this. If I were to sell Cindy my dining room furniture, and that's personal property, what would I give to Cindy to prove that she had bought it? Very good, guys. Bill of sale. Now, if I were to sell Cindy my house, of course, I would give her a deed. But on personal property, it's called the bill of sale. Very, very good. Okay, you guys are too good for these. All right, so highest possible ownership interest that can be held in real property. Is it life estate? Is it estate for years? Is it estate at will? Or is it fee simple estate? What is the highest possible ownership interest that we can have? Highest. Fee simple estate, right? The fee simple estate. So somebody really quickly, we were talking about this in my last tutoring session I was speaking over. We were talking about property ownership. And one of the things that we were talking about is fee simple absolute. If I sell you a property, very good question, Mike, you read my mind. If I sell you a property, fee simple absolute, then what? If I said, Mike, I'm selling you this property, fee simple absolute, can I come back and mess with Mike? Can I say, Mike, I'm going to control how you use your property? Can I say any of that? If it's fee simple absolute, no. Mike is free to do as he pleases. But what if I sold Alicia a property, fee simple defeasible, and I said, I do not want Alicia to ever get a goat. Should I find out on this fee simple defeasible property that Alicia has been harboring goats on her property, what can I do possibly to her? If she goes out and starts a goat farm behind my back and I get wind of it, what can I do? I can take it back, right? I can defeat her ownership. Feasible to feasible, I could take it back. Exactly. The goat's kind of stupid example, but you guys got what I'm talking about there. All right. Next one, water rights over a moving body of water like a river or a stream. We've already answered it, just asking the question in a different way. So we know this is riparian, but look what's on the screen, you guys. Bundle of rights. For those of you who use the PrepAgent vocabulary worksheet to study, you know that's up at the top. And that's the first one that pops up there. Bundle of rights. I want to know what's your memory trick. Stop. I remembered the memory trick that I always teach is deep sea. Ooh, Colton had another one. Up T. Okay, I don't know that one. So deep sea is mine that I always use. Up T. Whatever helps you remember, whatever your acronym is. What does this D stand for, you guys? What does the D stand for in deep sea? Anybody know? Do you guys know what the disposition, right? I can sell the property. I can give it away. It's mine to dispose of. Disposition. What about the first E? Anybody? 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 Enjoyment, right? You can't come along and tell me that you own the property because I own the property. I'm free to enjoy it. Leave me alone, right? What about exclusion? The second E. What if every time I went to work, Carolyn came over and started picking apples off my tree, and that really made me mad. And I said, don't come over here and pick apples off my tree anymore, Carolyn. Stay on your property. Don't come over here. That's exclusion. I'm telling you, don't come in my property. Stay away. Not that Carolyn would do that, but possession is the P. I can possess it. I can be in it. I can enjoy it. I don't have to ask anybody's permission. What about the C? Control. Yes, I have control over the property within the confines of the law. Of course, my bundle of rights don't come with unlimited control. There's still police powers on me as an owner of property. I still have to accept the fact that the government does put some restrictions on my use. I can't just go on my backyard and start building a Walmart without permission, right? Outside of the proper zoning. Very good. Okay. Allows you to postpone paying tax on the gain if you reinvest the proceeds in similar property. Is it a tax deferred exchange, a quiet title action, a sheltering cost, or a writ of execution? Tax deferred exchange, quiet title action, sheltering cost, or a writ of execution. This is a tax deferred exchange. Before I click the button, though, you guys tell me what is a common number that goes along with the tax deferred exchange, right? 1031, you got it. So I'm a like kind exchange. I'm exchanging one kind of property for another kind of similar property to defer capital gains. Now, on the topic of capital gains, let's say that Monica is a single person who files her taxes alone, and she is going to sell a property that she owns by herself, and she's lived in it for 2 years or more, and she is going to sell this property. How much profit can Monica make and not have to pay capital gains on her homestead property? $250,000. What if Monica was married to Mike and they each had a credit, right, for this? How much could they do if they were married filing jointly? 500,000. There you go. 500,000 for married filing jointly. Yeah, 250,000 for a single person. If it's a homestead property, if it's the house that you live in, primary residence. And somebody asked me, the boot. What is a boot? Okay, boot is on a 1031 like kind exchange. If there's money left over that I don't reinvest in the next property that I buy, then I do have to pay capital gains on that part right away because I'm pulling that money out. I'm not reinvesting it. That's called boot. That's the one. That's the boot. All right. So 500,000 for married filing jointly, profit, not just sales price, and then 250,000 if it is a single person. All right. Next one, a territorial division of land established by federal survey, being 6 miles square and containing 36 sections, each 1 mile square, driving every one of the real estate students that I've ever met crazy, which is our least favorite legal description that everybody always goes, oh, which one is that, right? So if it's 6 miles square and 36 sections, we all know that is a township in the lovely and beautiful government rectangular survey method. The government rectangular survey method is a type of what? We got lot and block, meets and bounds, government rectangular survey method. What am I describing there? What's the term for those three things? What do we call those things? Anybody remember? Anybody remember what that's called? Legal description, Cindy got it. Yes, a legal description. And if I live in a subdivision, then the map of the subdivision is called a plat map. For those of you like me who are Southern, we call a lot of times, we call our subdivisions plats, right? That plat is just a neighborhood, a subdivision, right? So the plat map is the subdivision map, and that would be used when we're doing the lot and block description. Now, let me ask you guys another question. If we're talking about the lot and block legal description, or pretty much any kind of legal description, but we were kind of talking about that. Let's say that I'm building a new subdivision and I want to know where all the property lines are going to be on my plat map. Who would I call to come out and tell me and help me write those legal descriptions? Whose job is that? Yes, the surveyor. So those guys that stand on the side of the road and you see them with the little telescope looking thing on the tripod, that's what they're doing. They're surveyors and they're going to determine those property boundaries and things for the legal description. Very good. Now, how many acres are in one section of a township? Going back to this government rectangular survey system. Close, Cindy, but Stoughton is right on this one. This is 640 acres in one section of a township. 640 acres in one section of a township. For those of you who answered 43,560, that's also an important number, but that is the number of square feet in an acre. So 43,560 square feet in 1 acre, but 640 acres in a section of a township. So make sure you guys keep those separated, right? So a section of a township has 640 acres, and 1 acre contains 43,560 square feet. Yep, there are 36 sections in a township. Right, exactly, Colton. Very good. And each one has 640 acres, so it's pretty big. All right, enough about that. Let's do another one. All right, a process that allows a lender to recover the amount owed on a defaulted loan. The process that allows a lender to recover the amount owed on a defaulted loan is that as cheat, foreclosure, conversion, or writ of execution. Which one is that? All right, so let's talk about different ways that foreclosure can happen really quickly, because I haven't talked about that in a while, and I just feel like talking about it. So like in my state, I live in Ohio, and in my state, we do traditional mortgages. So from day one, when I sign my promissory note, the mortgage document gets recorded at the courthouse, and it creates a what? What is it? I've got the deed, but what is the lender going to record that mortgage at the courthouse to create? What does that do? Because we talked about deed of trust earlier. Let's talk about mortgage now. That creates the lien. Exactly. So they've got a lien letting everybody know that I owe them money, but I've got the deed. Say Sharon's my lender, and I quit mailing my payments into Sharon. I'm like, the heck with you, Sharon. I'm just not going to make my payments anymore. And Sharon gets aggravated and she says, wait a minute. I want my money. Why aren't you paying me? And she accelerates the loan and she goes ahead and takes me to court and files a court action for foreclosure. And so we go before the judge, and the judge says, all right, fine, Sharon, you win. That's right. We're going to take the deed and we're going to auction this property off to get the money back to the lender to pay off the lien, right? That's how foreclosure would work in a state like Ohio. Now, in some states, we have what we call an equitable right of redemption if we're headed to foreclosure. If I have an equitable right of redemption before the gavel drops, right? Before the property sells. But in some states, like in Ohio, I believe we have 30 days unless they changed it. So after the foreclosure sale, after the foreclosure auction, here it's done by the sheriff. After that happens, I have like 30 days or so to win the Powerball and go and get my property back. What do we call that? After the gavel drops is already sold, the statutory right of redemption. So back when I used to buy a lot of properties at sheriff's sale, we would bid, we would put our deposit down, and then we would have to wait to come get the deed to make sure that that statutory right of redemption period was passed in case that person were to come and redeem the property.